Hi, I'm Margaret Mizushima. First of all, I'd like to thank the Colorado Authors League for sponsoring the Cal Awards and for naming my sixth Timber Creek Canine Mystery, Hanging Falls, a finalist in the Crime and Suspense Mystery category. I'd like to read an excerpt from Chapter 1 of Hanging Falls. The mountains around Timber Creek, Colorado, have been hit with an unusual amount of rainfall and flooding. And Deputy Maddie Cobb and her friend, wildlife manager Glenna Dalton, are out scouting the trail to Hanging Falls, looking for damage that needs repair. They've taken their dogs with them, Maddie's German Shepherd partner, Robo, and Glenna's Rhodesian Ridgeback, Moose. In this excerpt, they've reached the top of the trail and they've released their dogs to run ahead toward the lake. The unmistakable, deep-pitched bay that could come only from Moose resounded over the lake and echoed off the granite wall on the other side. "Oh dear," Glenna said, "what has he found?" "Not a cougar, I hope." Concern for Robo pushed Maddie forward. Stepping off trail to dash past Glenna, she sprinted toward the lake, shouting at the top of her lungs for Robo to come. Glenna ran close behind, but downhill had been Maddie's specialty in high school. Her shorter legs and lower center of gravity allowed her to travel faster than taller runners whose stride outmatched her when going uphill. She pulled ahead on the smooth pathway, continuing to shout for her dog. But Robo's familiar bark had joined the echo. Maddie reached the lake and took the trail along its edge where she'd last seen the dogs. The footing was rockier and uneven here, and she watched the path, shouting to Robo while she ran. She entered a band of pine that wrapped like a finger around the pool at the base of the falls. When Maddie broke through the trees, she spotted Moose and Robo crouched and barking near the base of the falls. White water spilled off a cliff, crashing over boulders, filling the air with a fine mist. Robo's bark sounded ferocious as he jumped at the water's edge, landing elbows deep in the pool and then backing out to trade places with Moose. Both dogs raced back and forth in a fury, their eyes pinned on a felled pine that lay partially underwater, its trunk upended but still anchored to shore by a root system that rose into the air. Maddie called Robo as she ran, but his attention was fixed on something within the submerged part of the tree, and he wasn't listening. Maddie raced the last 100 yards and came up to the dogs only a few paces ahead of Glenna. As she rounded the felled tree, Robo spotted her and came at once, his eyes bright and snapping with excitement. Maddie's first glance didn't reveal anything, and she allowed herself to relax, thinking it must be a squirrel or chipmunk that had taunted the dogs. But Robo whirled to go back to Moose, obviously still drawn to whatever the Ridgeback was barking at. In a stern voice, Maddie told Robo to leave it and made him come to her. Moose was so fixated on the tree boughs that he wouldn't break away when Glenna called him. She charged down to the water's edge to grab his collar. Glenna captured Moose and had started to drag him away when surprise crossed her face, followed by a look of horror. She straightened, one hand on Moose's collar while the other went to her chest. "Oh no," she said, loud enough for Maddie to hear over the roar of the falls. "What is it?" Maddie shouted, reaching for the pistol she'd strapped into a shoulder holster under her loose shirt. Glenna's eyes were still fixed on whatever she'd seen as she dragged Moose up the bank. "It's a body, Maddie, snagged in the tree, or at least I think it is." Surely not a body. Maddie returned the pistol to its holster. She needed to subdue Robo and get him back under control. She feared he would leap into the water, which swept past the tree and into the torrent. Robo, down, stay. He obeyed, panting, his eyes now pinned on her as he watched her every move. Glenna struggled to get control of Moose as he continued to bark and pull against her. With a feeling of dread, Maddie inched her way down the tree trunk, searching the water within the submerged branches. Then she spotted it, white and bloated, face down, bobbing about 6 inches below the water. One arm floated upward, its hand swollen like a puffer fish with sausage-like digits. A body, hung up in the snag of branches and debris from the felled pine. The current rushed against it, threatened to loosen the tree's hold and wash it away at any minute. Below this point, the river ran in rapids and white water until it spilled out of the bowl and rushed downhill, where it joined with other streams and run off. If this body slipped from its mooring, it would be damaged as it bounced over the boulders in the riverbed. And if it floated past the rim to the next falls, it might be lost forever. Maddie couldn't let that happen. She raised her eyes from the grisly sight and looked at Glenna. We need to get it out. And that's the end of chapter 1. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our recordings. And if you'd like to get any more information about the Timber Creek Canine Mysteries, you can go to my website at margaretmizushima.com. That's spelled M-I-Z-U-S-H-I-M-A. Thanks very much for listening. Bye for now.